Welcome to No Password Required. I'm your host, Jack Clabby, a cybersecurity attorney at Carlton Fields, PA. With me is
Kayley Melton, Executive Director of Operations at the Cognitive Security Institute, and the Bob Ross of InfoSec.
We just finished a great conversation with Madhav Nakar. Kayley, what stood out to you the most?
Oh, this was an amazing conversation with a lot of good things in it for the listener. But my favorite thing was just playing, trying to remember how to indulge in a sense of creative play, especially when you come up against difficult problems.
Yeah, and from my perspective, Madhav is a security researcher at BeyondTrust, former math major, serious guy with serious cybersecurity chops. And we ask him a question of how do you fight AI? How do you fight offensive AI? And the solution involves more AI, which is unfortunately what we got to do. So he'll give you it in his own words. You've heard a little bit about what Kayley and I took away from the discussion. Let's hear what Madhav had to say.
Welcome to No Password Required, a podcast dedicated to showcasing the top personalities in the world of cybersecurity.
Welcome back. Madhav, welcome to No Password Required.
Thank you.
All right, so it's great to have you here. You are a security researcher at BeyondTrust. What kind of things are you working on now?
Lately, the focus has been on the buzzword AI. So we're looking at securing AI agents, identity. That's our main thing. But also looking at different types of attacks that go on different cloud environments and how they all stitch together.
How do you go about actually looking at and researching the AI attacks? Like, what does that look like? You sit in front of a computer just typing into Reddit AI attacks. Like, what does that look like?
So the whole philosophy is that if you want to actually catch an attack, you kind of want to think as the person that's going to be attacking. So like an adversary. So maybe you find some attacks on Reddit, but the best way that we've found is to actually be first an admin of the product. So for example, learn about ServiceNow as an admin. And then from there, wear different hats as an adversary, as a defender, and then from there, stitch together different recommendations.
So you're looking for plausible attacks from knowing the systems, not just looking out there at what bad guys are actually doing. It's also plausibility.
Yeah. We try to predict attacks, but also we can't catch everything. So there's many beautiful open source reporting that comes out that we incorporate.
Nice. How did your path lead you to this role? Right? How did you get here?
Yeah, it's a funny story. So my degree is in math, and I just love the technicality of math, especially theoretical math. And then last semester of senior year, I realized that to make money and leave an impact, I would probably have to do a PhD. Okay. So I'm like, I'm going to have to pivot real quick. And I found cyber as the thing. And then from there, I got my Security Plus, hopped to 3 different companies. This is my third one. And that's where everything started, from math.
Oh, that's great. And how did you always have math from a young age? How did you find math originally?
Yeah. My mom's a math teacher, math tutor. So kind of ran in the blood. But it's like a whole game. It's like a maze. If you learn, if you take the course in real analysis, it's basically trying to prove calculus. And I just found that fascinating.
My mother has had a couple of jobs, and at one point she was a Spanish teacher, and I got 1 year into it in college, and then I stopped. But every once in a while, it'll float back up. You stuck with it longer than I did, so that's
3.5 years.
All right, so let's on the AI front. What are security teams getting wrong about AI agents right now?
Yeah, so I think, so when you say the word AI agents, there's 2 words. Yeah. And I think people are focusing on the first word a little bit too much, the AI part. So I think we should be focusing on the agent part. Essentially, we're all agents, right? Humans are agents. Agents is anything that can take action. So AI agent is AI that can take action. But how does an AI take action is through different things like tools, MCP, whatever privileges you give it. And I think that's the crux of the security issue. And I think most companies, a lot of people are focusing on things like prompt injection, which has its place. But then there's the other aspect, which is like, what tools do you have? Do you even have an inventory of the AI agents in your environment? Most people don't. So I think that's like the thing most security teams aren't focusing on.
It's like that, we're going to have more artificial identities than real artificial identities if we don't already have that in many companies now. They're just outnumbering real humans at this point.
Yeah. And there's many, I think VS Code has an extension for AI agents, and that just spawns an identity. And it's like, we're probably not having an inventory of those types of identities. And that's like a beautiful landscape for attackers. It's like a hidden identity.
Yeah.
What there's an acronym RBAC. What does that mean?
So that's like role-based access control.
Okay.
Any type of access that is based on the roles that an identity has. So, for example, the most powerful in most environments would be the admin, and then public would be the least privileged usually.
So, like in platforms like ServiceNow that rely heavily on these kind of role-based access controls and workflow automation, like where do these privilege escalation risks typically emerge, right? And how do organizations defend against them?
Yeah, so it's usually the privilege escalations happen when there's a lack of understanding of the security architecture.
Okay.
No fault to any developer or anything because it's really complex. So ServiceNow is a great example of this, where even if you have certain role-based access controls, if you're in a certain application scope, suddenly those role-based access control apply a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Maybe you have cross-scope privileges. So understanding how all these architecture fit together and not having that understanding is why privilege escalation occurs. And I could go into a specific example if you like.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, so in ServiceNow, there's two types of scriptings. There's a client-side scripting and then the server-side scripting. The client-side scripting is generally secure, but the server-side scripting is very interesting because server-side scripting runs in the context of the server, which is kind of privileged. So essentially, any role that can create a server-side script is essentially admin because that server-side script can insert itself into ACLs, into different role tables.
Okay.
But if you look at the architecture, there's like ServiceNow says only this role, import admin, for example, can create a server-side script. But they don't say that import admin is equivalent to admin. Okay. But it is because the import admin can create a server-side script to give itself admin privileges. So if you don't have that understanding of how these different complexities and privilege flows down, it could be a recipe for disaster.
I don't mean to take it back too far, but it's curious to me that you started out in theoretical math and ended up in security. I feel like that's a path that I see a lot in this field. I'm curious how those things informed one another, if at all, the transition from theoretical math into cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's there's not a one-to-one correlation that I've noticed in my journey. It was more of it was more about the systems of thinking. The way you think about cyber is kind of similar to the way you would think about theoretical math. It's like the analogy I have is like the game is chess, but the chessboard is still the same for cybersecurity and math. The moves might be a little bit different, but the way that, for example, when you do graph modeling to see how attackers could move from different nodes and edges, that's a really mathematical concept applied to cybersecurity. So I'm really at that, I'm seeing the intersection of it a lot.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I understand there was a significant career pivot that put you right in the thick of cybersecurity very quickly. So can you tell us a little bit about the first time you saw a nation state attack happen on a customer's infrastructure?
Yeah. So this was during my soccer days. And up until that point, I had read about nation state attacks. They seemed pretty cool. And, like you would read blogs and you would say, oh, this is what a nation state would do. And then I think it was at nighttime because I had the nighttime shift, and I started to see these weird command line arguments. If there's any SOC analyst, if you see like echo and a bunch of base 64 commands being piped into something else, it's like, okay, something's going on. And as I dug further, it's like, well, this is kind of matching what I've read in a blog post in the past. We also had internal training. So I'm like, this is really similar. And I'm like, I couldn't believe like this could possibly be a nation state. Like some person on the other side of the world is attacking my customer. It's like, I couldn't believe it. Luckily, it didn't go far because we had defensive mechanisms and it stopped it right in place. But it was like so cool to see, like I'm going up against an adversary right now.
It's like the quintessential everyone is typing on the keyboard at once moment in media.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have a hoodie on? Did you just tighten your hoodie and get to work? Like, was it like that kind of a thing?
I didn't, so I took this and I'm like, I got to get into it.
So after everything you've seen, AI agents, privilege escalation, nation state actors, what keeps you up at night now?
I guess familiar with the Okta breach that happened against the Las Vegas hotels in like 2023.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was at least the initial access was scattered spider, and when the authorities looked into it, it turned out to be a 17-year-old guy. So a 17-year-old guy socially engineered one of the biggest hotels in all of America and led to one of the biggest attacks. Now, if you give that 17-year-old Opus 4.6, which is known to be causing industry-wide issues already. If you guys heard of the recent news where all the cybersecurity stocks tanked because Anthropic said about their security product. Now you give that 17-year-old Opus 4.6, instead of being a script kiddie, that teenager is equivalent of me. Like I have 5 years of experience. That he's probably even more powerful than me. So those are things that I'm really like, oh, where's the industry heading now?
All right. So you said that research is about exploration, not about forcing any kind of outcomes. That's tough for new folks to get that through. Where did that mindset come from? How do you get to reframe like that?
Yeah, this is a lesson I learned at this team that I'm on. I was trying to do some red teaming against Okta, and I just couldn't make any progress. And my manager is like, instead of trying to force an outcome, you just have to play around a little bit. Mm-hmm. And once I realized that, it's like once you play, you start to see how the different systems are kind of correlating with each other, and that's where you see different attack paths. If you look at any sophisticated attack, you'll see how the adversary didn't just look at one thing. They looked at multiple different things across systems that, as a regular person like me, I wouldn't even have been able to chain those things together. But they did it because it was almost an exploration for them. So that's the type of mindset I'm trying to adopt more.
Does that follow you to things outside your work life too, that kind of mindset?
Yeah. Letting go of control and being in that flow state. Yeah, absolutely. That's something I struggle with. But yeah, flow state is a beautiful thing once you're able to get into it.
That's hard as an adult to find ways to play too, or at least to feel like you're exploring, right? Sometimes it takes you have to really work hard to get to there.
Yeah. It's I don't know if you guys watch sports. There's like two types of players. One is like the Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, which is like pure willpower, and then there's the other, which is like Steph Curry, who's like gonna have fun with it. Yeah. It's like, well, you could fun max instead of like trying to willpower play through it.
My dad used to say before basketball games, if you were watching a game, you could tell who was going to win based on who was cracking up and who was sweating a little bit in the warm up. That team seems looser and having a good time versus teams that feel real tense. But I think that's exactly what we're getting at, right? Is that idea, you can have a fun time and also do something that's serious. You can have a fun time doing something that's serious, and it might actually make you better.
Right. And it's there's a blog post I read, and it was someone that published a blog post about failed research, like her experience in field research. And I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have ever thought of writing a blog post about field research, because for me, only success matters. And from that, it was like a kind of reframe, like her entire, like it didn't matter whether it failed or not, that was success for her. So I'm like, that's really cool because your definition of failure kind of is what stops a lot of flow.
There was an article many years ago, I think in the Harvard Business Review, but maybe one of our listeners knows what I'm talking about and can send it to us. But it was about a business student who was getting rejections from jobs he was applying to. And so as a result, what he did was he did an experiment where every day he did something preposterous, knowing he was going to get rejected. But he would just inoculate himself against rejection. And so it was like he was standing next to a police officer who was on a horse, and he said, "Hey, can I ride your police horse?" Or he'd be standing in line at like a McDonald's and say, "Hey, can I work the register for a couple of minutes just to see what it's like?" And then he wrote about his experiences, and it was, he was rejected, but he also kind of found out the sort of side learning he did was people might say, well, no, you can't ride my police horse, but like we can hang out for a little while if you want to, and I'll tell you about my horse. Or no, you can't come behind this, but you can you can meet the manager and we'll give you a free apple pie, right? Like stuff that happened en route to getting the failure you knew was coming was pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's so like it's like a weight lifted off because you don't care.
Yeah, I love that so much. I want to lead into a question, and I feel like I got set up perfectly for it because I want to ask about a documentary that you're working on related to exploration of spiritual traditions from a neutral perspective. And I would say have a fun time doing serious things is kind of my spiritual mantra for life. So anyway, why do you feel drawn to work on such a topic?
The bigger questions of life kind of always just fascinated me. Like if you step beyond your role as a security researcher, as a parent, as a husband, wife, like why do we exist? Where did we come from? And those are things that every religion tries to ask and answer throughout cultures, throughout different societies across time. Those are like the fundamental questions of any philosophy. And I'm like, I want to explore all of them and try to present them in a way that is fun, is informative, and people can come to their own conclusions and not be controlled by any one particular sect. So that's kind of my motivation.
How's the project coming together?
It's coming together. I think the bigger thing than the project is my own evolution because I first have to challenge my own beliefs. And so I'm in the process of that. Like I need to contend with what I believe and don't believe. Yeah. And the project will emerge from that. But yeah.
That's beautiful. I love the idea of doing this not only for yourself, but letting something grow out of that can help other people with the same questions as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious whether you've found any parallels between this spiritual exploration and your more mundane daily life as a security researcher.
In a very like meta level, a little bit. There's something I coined like the spiritual red teaming. It's like how do ideas spread is like a really fascinating question for me. Ideas spread. Obviously, we see that across human culture, but also if you think about viruses or malware or certain ways that attackers attack systems, those are also like trends. And the intersection of those two is like pretty fascinating because I think you can simulate a lot of human culture evolution through things like viruses like in the human body, but also viruses in worms and computers. So it's like really fascinating to see like a fractal almost where different things in different systems just show a very similar pattern.
Yeah, so right now I'm working in the field of cognitive security, and spiritual red teaming feels very relevant for that field. I think it's something that's very difficult for people to do, to truly red team their own beliefs and thoughts and philosophies, but I feel it's very important work as a human to do, just in general, regardless of what it looks like.
Yeah, it's unsettling. I will say that, but the truth is always unsettling.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious now, based on what you just said, whether you feel like you approach content creation more from the perspective of an artist or more like a scientist.
Well, my approach to creating content is definitely more scientific. Like the content, like if you swipe on Instagram, you'll notice like the top performers are really good at telling stories. And for example, one of the most important part of telling a story is the first sentence that you say, because that's the hook. You want to hook the person in. So that's almost a science. But at the end of it, at the end of creation, I don't want it to be like formulated. I want them to go through an experience. So for them, I want it to be an art. But from my end, it's science.
As an artist, I feel like there's very little difference between the two, you know, like there's an exploration of a heady question or theory or hypothesis, and whatever happens.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're letting the audience get inside your mind, and it's almost a roller coaster. Yeah.
I want to go back to something you mentioned before in the discussion of fractals and when you see things sort of spread out. I mean, we're seeing right now with AI, its growth is exponential, not linear, right? But I don't feel like the defense is growing at the same rate. What do we do about that? What does that imbalance look like from the defender's perspective?
Yeah, I honestly think that you have to pit AI against AI, because if you want to match the power of exponential growth, you have to do the same from the defender side. What I think that a lot of organizations that won't do this there will be like an automation sprawl, so like a lot of automation because of AI. And then defenders not understanding how these highly complex automated systems and workflows are even working. And that gap, that expanding gap, will be like the area that attackers want to go. This is why like a lot of new companies are coming out that try to incorporate AI into their defensive workload. You see, I forgot the name of the company, but they're creating an AI automated pen testing, and it's actually really good. So it's like you want to invest in those. You want to pit AI against AI.
It's like, I think I'm misremembering potentially the plot of the book Neuromancer, which was like one of the first sci-fi books to deal with AI in this scale. But it was no spoiler of a book that's like 40 years old at this point. But I think that's what ends up happening is there's an AI that fights an AI. And I always felt like, yeah, that's where we're going to go. Just going to be two AIs fighting on the moon. And we're just going to be collateral damage. I hope they fight each other and not us, at least. Right? I mean, that would be better than just turning around and just knocking us out. Madhav, what are we going to worry about 5 years from now? Right? You know, what are we going to regret not having taken seriously?
I think how to think about AI is a big thing. Most people don't have an established worldview or paradigm about how to think about AI. It's kind of similar to how when social media first came out, the parents that had children that were on social media were kind of lost because it was such a foreign thing. They had no concept of social media. I think AI is taking over that even at a more accelerating rate. If you ask the average person about AI, they'll say ChatGPT, but AI is far beyond that now. So it's I think how to think about AI is the biggest thing now.
The agentic kind of revolution, the idea that things can be operating when you go to bed on your behalf from things that you touched and had privacy on, is the part to me that it seems the biggest gap between what the average person thinks about and what's actually happening these days.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys saw the Clawbot thing, which is you could control your entire computer through WhatsApp messages.
Yeah.
I did not see that, but it makes sense. And of course, we can do that. Yeah. Of course, you can just be on your phone. Yeah. My goodness. Yeah. I feel like robots need to catch up. Robots and driving cars need to catch up to AI. Like AI right now is still in the box. I'm looking forward to it walking around. I feel like that's when it's going to get really scary and weird.
Hey, Boston Dynamics is doing really good now. We combine the two.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break. When we return, Madhav will go through the lifestyle polygraph. Stay with us.
You're listening to the No Password Required podcast. We cover cybersecurity and a lot of other stuff.
Welcome back. As many of you know, the Lifestyle Polygraph is a test used by the federal government to determine if a person is worthy of learning some of our nation's most important secrets. Here, we use this technique for slightly lower stakes, to determine whether our guest can join our fantasy cybersecurity squad. Madhav, are you ready for the Lifestyle Polygraph?
Bring it on.
All right. First question. If you had to create a cybersecurity documentary that challenged how people think about security, what story would you tell?
I think right now at cybersecurity, we're at a very interesting intersection between consciousness and actually deep technical stuff because of AI. So if in the past, we used to think of identities as things that relate to the individual user because of where they live, their MFA. Now, because of AI, we can expand that user profile to much more like psychological profiling. So it would be really interesting to make a documentary that kind of talks about the future of how cybersecurity is going to incorporate psychology, into how they do cybersecurity. So that's something I would love to investigate in that documentary.
I love the format of documentaries because it's becoming more and more popular. I mean, what is like, if you think about, what is one of these like murder podcasts, but a documentary, right? That's what it is, right? People like it. I mean, you think that obviously big budget movies, like all the Marvel movies are out there, but in reality, people have an appetite to consume true things told in a story format, right? Across a broad range of sort of concerns. My favorite documentaries are the ones where you learn about something you didn't know anything about and you go deep on it, right? And I think this is something where you could really nail this. And I think it would be a good way of, you could make it quickly too, so it could be topical. But this would be something that I think would not just be of interest to the industry practitioner, but to others as well, to folks who want to learn about something they're not as familiar with.
Yeah, and try to get people that are outside of cybersecurity interested.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If you ever want to work on that, let me know.
Sure.
All right, second question. Someone challenges you by saying, comfort is better than growth. What is your rebuttal?
Comfort doesn't create memories. There's a thing called misogi in the Japanese culture, which is like you do something really hard once a year that kind of sets the tone for the rest of your life. So if you did that and you lived up to 80 years old, you have 80 hard things that you did versus the average person that would probably do 2 or 3. So who lived more life? And I'm like, forget comfort.
I really love that.
Behold the turtle. He only makes progress when he sticks his neck out. It is so, things are so easy to be comfortable right now, right? If you give yourself over to the algorithms and you just sit with your phone and you just scroll through things, people have a default neutral, not neutral, you have a default form of entertainment right in your hand at all times of the day so that we don't feel the need to go out and seek experiences if you can just fall into these algorithms. I think fighting it takes a lot of work, but can be quite rewarding.
Yeah, we need a renewed sense of adventure.
I like that.
Absolutely.
I went to the doctors and was told I had some vitamin D deficiency. I was like, I live in Florida. How can I be vitamin D deficient, right? But I was realizing I wasn't going outside at any point during the day. And so the touch grass thing really resonated with me. And so now I do try to go outside. And even if I take a walk around the building for the day, and you're right, I have adventures during that time. I see someone I didn't know before. I chat with someone, even if I walk to the mall to get something to eat from where I work, it gives you something, gives you a story that you didn't have at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, that's so true.
So in a related question, you clearly have a tendency to walk straight into your fear. Tell us about how that played out the first time you stepped into MMA training.
First time it was scary. It was like just a whole different type of body movement, dance. It's almost a dance. But the most memorable part from that is one time I was making reels about facing your fears, and I'm like, I'm kind of scared of sparring. So I'm like, I'm gonna do the scariest thing, which is that there's this big guy at my sparring thing, and he always beats me up. There's nothing I can do about it. So one day I'm like, I'm gonna go in with my camera and I'm gonna challenge him. And I literally told him that he had nothing on me, and I knew that would get him angry, and that got me scared too. And then so we started sparring, and he just beat me up. There was nothing to do. But it was fun. It was fun to show people that it's fine to get beat up.
Yeah. It makes me think of that story or study that you were talking about earlier, Jack, of just leaning into it, just letting it be its own thing.
We're not going out there to learn how to beat the guy. We're learning how to get up when we get knocked down by the guy. That's what we're out there learning. And then suddenly it's like, hey, let's go. I call it harvesting no's or harvesting failures. Go out there and just do it. Right. Yeah. I know it's going to fail, but let's get it over with, and we'll learn it's not that bad. That makes you ready for the one that you're not sure if you're going to fail. And who cares? I fail, it's bad, whatever. I have another one scheduled for tomorrow.
Yeah. It's like cold showers. Like if you don't want to do it in the beginning, but once you do it, it feels so good.
You get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So question number 4, you once made a documentary about forcing yourself to dance in public. Can you tell us about that experience and how you would rate your post-documentary dancing skills?
Let's talk about that. Dancing had always just been a really big fear for me, but below that fear was like the fear of self-expression. But dancing was a symptom of that. So I'm like, let's try to beat this fear. So like I did a bunch of stuff. I learned to record in public. So the intro of that was me at an airport constantly. Like I think I recorded that 50 times. So that was one fear that I unlocked. Then it was dancing silly. So I went to a public park and I'm like, I'm going to pick the busiest park and I'm just going to put up a camera, just dance silly. So I did that. Then it was like the fear of my voice. Like when you do content and you listen to yourself, you have, why do I sound like that?
Mm-hmm.
I took a singing class to unlock my voice. And so I gradually, I'm like, I'm going to compile all my fears into one and put it out there.
Is this available to find if we wanted to get a hold of it? Is it on your socials or?
Yeah, it's on my socials.
Okay. That's really cool. This sounds great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Post documentary dancing skills. Oh, they've deteriorated.
Deteriorated. Is it because you care less about what you look like?
Yeah, exactly.
This is like I would guess that as casual phone photography goes up, public dancing goes down. You know what I mean? And that stinks, right? That really stinks. Yep. Right. There's one thing to dance, another thing to dance while you're being videotaped by someone else who has malicious intent. But this is a great fear that you were getting over both the dancing and by recording it yourself, you inoculated against the weird fear of having someone else record you. So you're knocking out both of those things. I love it.
And then putting it out there, which is even more embarrassing. Yeah,
exactly. And then saying, in recording it, knowing it was going to be out there too. It was the double fear, the triple fear. That's great.
Yep.
So question 5, and this is perhaps in line with what I would ask next. You started creating content to build a global community of aligned thinkers, which is what I would assume would happen, putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, showing that you can conquer these things. Surely that would attract people who were inspired or like-minded. But the question is, if 30 of those people showed up tonight for dinner, what's the first debate topic that you're throwing on the table?
Debate topic. I would say, what is the best way to spread ideas? It's like, and then there's a couple of them. There's stories. Then there's you could create inventions that people love to use, and then they gravitate towards those ideas. So, what is the best way to spread ideas? Kind of goes back to my point of spiritual red teaming, because if you can understand how ideas spread the best, then you could essentially turn that like into a system prompt for AI, And so you have a whole framework about how to organize different consciousness, because whether AI is conscious or not, we don't know. It's mimicking human consciousness. It's kind of similar to how we're thinking, at least from the outside, it seems. So if we can have a framework that we understand how consciousness we could align, because when all humans are aligned, we can do wonderful things. But we're all fractalized and we're all just fighting. We can't do much. So what is the best framework to align consciousness? And that sort of debate would be really interesting.
That's great.
So what do you think, Jack? Does Madhav have what it takes to join our fantasy cybersecurity squad?
Yes, he's going to become our cyber documentarian, among other skills that he can bring to it. But we don't have a documentarian to capture our cyber squad's adventures and our growth.
Thank God he didn't say dancer.
Madhav, well, look, thank you for joining us. If our listeners want to connect with you, how can they do that?
I'm on The Fire of Knowing, YouTube, Instagram.
That's the best way. Great. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you all for listening. For the entire No Password Required team, I'm Jack Clabby, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks for listening to the No Password Required podcast. Join us next time for more with your favorite cybersecurity personalities. In the meantime, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this episode. You can find us on social media at NoPasswordPod. The show is produced by Cyber Florida, and a special thanks goes out to our friends at Carlton Fields and Reality Shift. For more information, visit our website at cyberflorida.org/pod.